Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome. I'm excited to introduce our speaker this morning. We have with us today Dr. Allison Brennan. She is an assistant professor in human development and community health. And we are also very fortunate and happy to have her in extension as the mental health specialist. So welcome, Allison. Thank you for being here, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First, I'm just going to apologize. I have a bit of a cold, so my voice is a little bit raspy today. I hope you'll bear with me. So I just want to say before I get started here that typically when we do presentations on stress, I usually tag team that with Dr. Michelle Grokey-Dewey. And unfortunately, she couldn't be with us today, so I am flying solo. But I do want to acknowledge that much of this content we developed together. So although I'm presenting it, Michelle definitely had a hand in developing this content. And then I see in the participants list here, lots of familiar names. It's great to see you all on this morning. Thank you for tuning in. So 2 weeks ago, in Michelle's session, Managing the Emotions of Conflict, she presented on the physiological, neurological, and cognitive theories of emotion. And essentially, to summarize that, there are a variety of theories about the relationships that exist among our bodily responses, our thoughts, and our emotions that occur in response to our subjective experiences in daily life. No matter which of those theories resonated with you, or maybe you didn't see that presentation, and that's okay. Really, the take home there is that all of these things, our bodily sensations, our thoughts, our feelings, that they impact one another. So in other words, what's going on with us mentally, with our thoughts and our feelings, that those things are affected by and can affect what is happening with us physically. And so that's really the major take home there, is that there's this brain-body connection, and that's really important to understand when we talk about managing stress and anxiety. And then last week, Caitlin Anderson presented on establishing boundaries, and you'll see some notes of that in today's presentation when we get into the 4 A's of stress management as a specific tool. And so my hope today is that the information and tools that I'm providing really build upon those previous presentations, but also that this is useful as a standalone session in case you didn't see those earlier presentations, although I do highly recommend that you go back and take a look at them if you haven't seen them. So what is stress? We're going to start with just a little overview of stress itself. And you can see in the image here, this is an image from Psych Central of the different stress responses. So in daily life, when we are confronted with a stressor, which is the thing that causes us stress, whether that's a person or a specific situation or something in our environment, that we experience this physiological stress response. And you'll often hear this described as fight or flight, but we know from research that it's actually more than just fight or flight. There are different ways to conceptualize this. So fight, you confront the threat. Flight, running away from the threat. That's that little rabbit in the image. Freeze is like the deer in the headlights. So you kind of shut down and just block out the threat. And then fawn is a special one that's pretty new in the literature, and that's really more in reference to social stressors. So you try to appease the threat. And what that looks like is people pleasing or lack of boundaries. So these are the basic responses to a stressor. And so we experience this physical, mental, or emotional factor that we encounter, our stressor, and that leads us to this physiological stress response. And what that actually looks like in the body is that we experience an activation of the sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is one part of the autonomic nervous system. And you can think of the sympathetic nervous system as the gas pedal. So when it's activated, things happen to us like our heart rate increases, our breathing increases, blood flow to the major muscles is heightened, and our pupils dilate. And so this is a very amazing biological response that prepares us to respond to that threat, that perceived threat. And what we see then is this release of adrenaline and cortisol into the bloodstream. And the adrenaline is what's causing the increased heart rate and the breathing. And then cortisol actually increases blood glucose. It increases the availability of sugar, which makes sense, right? Because if you're going to have to fight or if you're going to have to run away, you need to have that energy there to do that. And so the cortisol helps do that and also makes your brain, it enhances your brain's use of cortisol. All right, so, just 1 minute. I was just going to pause and say that this stress response is extremely useful. It's adaptive, it helps us get away from threats, and it keeps us safe from harm. And it's okay if it happens in manageable amounts and if it's resolved quickly. But what becomes a problem is when we're in that activated state, so we're stepping on that gas pedal for long periods of time, or there's not enough space in between instances of the fight or flight response. So then you get this chronic experience of stress over time. And that's when we start to see some of the negative health effects and debilitation from stress. So impacts of stress, lots of body impacts, muscle tension, fatigue, problems with the GI tract, lower immune functioning. So if you have short bursts of manageable stress, that actually can boost immune functioning, but if it's chronic, that's going to reduce your immune functioning. And headaches. So those are just some of the common impacts that people experience. In terms of thoughts and feelings, difficulty with decision making, problems with attention or concentration, and mood changes. Actions, so our behaviors are impacted. We might be more impulsive. We might experience changes in eating or sleeping or increased substance use. And then, as you might expect, if we're having all of these symptoms from body, mind, actions, it's going to impact our relationships. So increased conflict is likely, and then that, or also you could see some social withdrawal. So like being isolated or less connected. Because if you're overwhelmed by all of these different symptoms, being in a social context is really difficult. And then I just wanted to quickly address, what is anxiety? Anxiety really is part of the human spectrum of emotions. And you can see at the right there, I've got a little wedge of the feelings wheel. And so anxiety is really a more nuanced form of fear, and it is a specific reaction to stress. Some of the feelings that come with anxiety could be apprehension, dread, or nervousness, and a lot of the physical symptoms of anxiety are very similar to the physiological stress response, because it really is just a more specific version of the stress response. One really important point, though, is that experiencing anxiety is not the same thing as having an anxiety disorder. So we all experience anxiety at some point. Give me just a minute here. I'm going to take a little drink. So everybody experiences anxiety at some point, whether it's, you have to give a big presentation, or you're going to take a test, or you're walking into a meeting that you expect is going to be contentious, right? These are all normal experiences of anxiety, but the thing is that they resolve in a timely manner and they're manageable after that event has passed. So typical anxiety versus problem anxiety. Well, problem anxiety is characterized by persistence of the anxiety long after the stressor has passed. Also, the intensity is over and above what you might expect. So as an example, I myself have an anxiety disorder, and when you break out in hives and have to take prednisone after a presentation, that is definitely an elevated level of intensity, right? And then impairment or interference is another hallmark of problem anxiety, that it actually creates obstacles for you in daily life and impairs your ability to work, to enjoy relationships, and so forth. And so I did just want to say that, if it seems like your anxiety has one or more of these characteristics of persistence, intensity, or impairment, that it's a good idea to talk with a qualified professional about that, because anxiety disorders can only be diagnosed by a qualified professional. And that could be a medical doctor, that could be a nurse practitioner, a psychologist, or a therapist. There are lots of options there for talking to someone about that. Okay, so stress management basics. How are we going to manage this? Well, we just wanted to start here with some kind of essentials, and you might say, okay, well, these are pretty obvious ones, but they get forgotten a lot. So nutrition, when you're really stressed out, it is not uncommon to want to reach for some really greasy, salty, starchy, delicious comfort food, right? But this is exactly the time when actually what we need to do is increase fruits and veggies, because fruits and vegetables contain essential vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. Also, fruits and vegetables that are high in water content, like grapes or watermelon, cucumber, or celery, can help with the next item on the list, which is staying hydrated. Water helps regulate body temperature and blood pressure, and it's important for delivering oxygen throughout the body. So making sure that you are staying hydrated is really important. And then minimize caffeine, I say, as I have my giant tumbler of coffee next to me. This one is one of the hardest ones to do for me. Minimizing caffeine consumption, because caffeine actually injects adrenaline into your system and can increase the body's level of cortisol. And so if you're trying to manage stress, caffeine is actually going to be a problem. It's going to actually make that worse. And so sticking to roughly 400 milligrams per day, which is about 20 ounces of drip coffee, that's a kind of a good guideline there. And then next we have daily exercise. And this is where I refer you all to this beautiful Mont guide that Michelle has co-authored on physical activity, different types, how much is needed, and health benefits. So usually this is where Michelle would give a spiel about physical activity, but essentially some guidelines around this would be 22 minutes of aerobic exercise daily, as well as strength training on 2 days per week. And so that Mont guide has fabulous recommendations for different types of physical activity, how to integrate it into daily life, and then some very specific tools that you can use to ensure that you're getting enough exercise. And then next we have sleep, which again, we've got another fabulous Mont guide called Sleep, Its Health Benefits, How Much You Need, and Strategies to Get More. Because sleep is essential for physical and mental well-being. And most adults need at least 7 hours of sleep each night. But it's not just about quantity, it's also about quality. And so sometimes you might experience reduced quality due to a number of factors. And so the Sleep Mont guide is going to have a lot more information about how to enhance the quality of your sleep and specific actions you can take for better sleep, and then also what to do if you're having sleep issues. So there's actually a sleep diary included in the Mont guide, and some recommendations around when you should talk to a medical professional about it. Okay, so A specific tool that I want to talk about right now is the 4 A's of stress management. And these are a set of coping strategies that were developed by Mayo Clinic staff. And so coping strategies are techniques or resources we use to manage sources of stress and our reactions to stress. And so each of the A's is a different tool. We're going to go through each individually. So there are 4 A's: avoid, alter, adapt, and accept. Avoid and alter are really about directly engaging with the stressor, whereas adapt and accept are about managing our reactions to it. So avoid, we'll start with avoid. This is just like it sounds, finding ways to stay away from the people, places, and other stressors that bother you. So what does this look like in daily life? Saying no to responsibilities that aren't urgent or essential. Figuring out what the most important tasks are and crossing the others off your list. So this likely harkens back a bit to what Caitlin presented on boundaries and prioritizing. Creating distance between you and something or someone that causes you stress. Those are all avoid. And I always tell people, the caveat here is you can't avoid things forever. Avoid is useful if there's a really chaotic situation and you have limited control over that situation. But you can get into a lot of trouble if all you do is avoid. So then we've got alter. And alter is really about engaging directly with the stressor to change aspects of it that you can. So this is useful in a situation where you do have some control over the situation. Stating limits in advance. Yes, I will attend this meeting, but I only have 30 minutes. Asking other people to change their behavior. And I know Caitlin touched on, you can't expect people to change their behavior, but you can ask them. And one of the things that I would put forth here is you're more likely to get someone to change their behavior or to work with you on it if you communicate your feelings using I statements, because I statements allow you to take ownership of your feelings and to express your needs, whereas you statements, you did this and you need to stop, blah, blah, that puts people on the defensive. And we don't want to do that if we want them to work with us. So my favorite tool for using I statements is the Rosenberg Nonviolent Communication Script. When I see, and then just the facts, I feel, what do you feel? Because I need or value, and then you would fill that in. Would you be willing to? And then you make a specific and reasonable request. And the answer might be no. They might say, no, I'm not willing to do that. But then at least you have that information and you can move forward and try something else. And then we've got adapt. And adapt is really the reaction to what's going on. It's trying to adjust your expectations or redefine success so that you react differently. So don't strive for perfection. Try to make reasonable substitutes. Try to address your negative self-talk. And so a lot of times we're our own worst enemies. The things that we say to ourselves are not, they're not constructive things. And so one of the ways that I encourage you to challenge yourself is to address negative self-talk by saying, hey, will this matter next week, next month, or next year? And then another strategy would be, and this is the one I tend to use most, whoa, if I talk to my friends the way I'm talking to myself right now, would I have any friends? And so those are some good strategies for addressing the self-talk. And then another adapt strategy is to focus on the positive aspects of your life. And one of the good ways to do this is through gratitude journaling. So I've got a link down there it's a Berkeley website that explains different ways you can engage in gratitude journaling, but generally 3 times a week, 15 minutes per entry, you just identify 5 specific things for which you feel grateful and the details about that. And so starting your day with that or ending your day with that can be really powerful. And then lastly, we have accept, finding a way to be at peace with the situation. You could talk with an understanding friend who isn't going to judge you for expressing negative emotions. Practice forgiveness, including forgiving yourself. And then instead of letting the negative energy dominate, recognize teachable moments. So really there, it's what can I learn from this situation, or moving forward, what can I apply in the future? So those are the 4 A's. And then now we've got a couple real quick, they're more body oriented strategies. So the first is box breathing. And so controlled breathing is really a great strategy for engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. So remember, the sympathetic is the gas. Well, the parasympathetic is the brakes. So controlled breathing is going to help us put the brakes on. And so one of the controlled breathing strategies that can be really helpful here is box breathing. And the way it works is simply you inhale to a count of 4, you hold your breath to a count of 4, you breathe out to a count of 4, and then you hold in an exhaled state to a count of 4. Really simple, and usually you would do just a few cycles of that until you started feeling calm. Another great way to use this is, you can definitely use this when you're already in an elevated state, but you can try doing this before entering a situation that you think might be stressful to sort of preemptively bring yourself down. And then last, this one is one of my absolute favorites, and I see someone in the attendees who I know uses this on a regular basis, but I won't name names. This is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. And this is intended to really bring you back into your body and orient you in your environment, and really help if you're having feelings of panic or racing thoughts and so forth. And we do this by getting in touch with our senses. It's something you can do anytime, anywhere, and it's pretty simple. You identify 5 things that you can see in the environment around you, 4 things that you can touch, and I actually like to reach out and touch those things if I can, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. So this is a really great one to do in a garden setting, because there's all kinds of sights and sounds and smells, and so in a garden setting for sure, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding is going to be powerful. Okay, and with that, here's my contact info. And again, I just want to thank you for joining today. And if you have questions, we are happy to take those right now.
Wonderful, Allison. Thank you so much. Lots of really, really good, useful information in there. I put it in the chat window, but the box breathing has been shared 3 or 4 times now, I think. So, make note of that, everyone. It's obviously a good tool when everyone's recommending it. Yeah, we have a few minutes for questions. Please put those in the chat window. I have one while we're waiting for others. You kind of spoke to it in the negative self-talk, and throughout, but can you speak again, in my experience and speaking for myself and people, I interact with, it's really easy to place judgment on these things. And then it seems to kind of become this spiral of it's only negative versus stress is natural. So can you kind of speak to that mindset and how you might shift from being really judgmental of yourself to recognizing as a reality and using it versus judging yourself?
Yeah, I think like you just said, remembering that this is normal, that this is just what your body does, right? You don't have control over your physiological response. You do have control over what you do with that, right? And so it is normal to feel overwhelmed, to feel anxious, to feel stressed sometimes. And that's okay. That's part of being human. But beating yourself up for it, especially if you're like, oh, if you're like me, then you're like, you're kicking yourself for not doing the stress management right. And that's
Mhm.
not going to be a helpful thing. It's going to cause that sort of spiral. And so I think for me, it's really, how am I talking to myself? And if a friend, like I said, if a friend came to me and they were experiencing this, how would I respond to them? And usually it would be, I would respond with compassion and helpful suggestions and ultimately just be there to listen. And so how can you be that kind of a friend to yourself to really work on, okay, it's okay that this is happening. This is part of life and you did the best you could, right? So kind of just trying to see it from that sort of third person point of view. Mindfulness practice can be a really helpful way of doing that. And so I didn't really talk about mindfulness practice, but Michelle has some fabulous guided mindfulness meditations that she posted on her stress management website. And those can be really good ones just to learn, like, you've got all these thoughts and feelings swirling, and to just kind of let them come in, try not to judge them, let them go out.
Great. Yeah, this is tricky space.
Mm-hmm.
A lot feels to rest upon our shoulders in managing it. So we're near the top of the hour. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise on this with us today. Um, for those of you on, you have additional questions or maybe you want to have a conversation offline, please reach out both to Allison and I. We'd be happy to connect with you. Next week, we are wrapping up the series. In the last handful of years, so many of our interactions have moved into online environments. So we thought it was really important to take some time to look specifically through that lens of, okay, all of these things are much harder when you're now in a remote environment and you're not sitting in the same space with folks. So join us next week. Caitlin Anderson will be wrapping us up with how to navigate conflicts in those online meetings. And Allison, thank you again. Have a wonderful day. And everyone, thank you for being here. We hope to see you next week.
Thank you.